Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I was perusing my subscription feed earlier today and I came across Eyes of Alexandria's newest upload, which was a tag called the Another Palette tag, and she got this tag from Kaylee Baute. I'll put both of their channels down below. This is a little bit of an older tag and it has like eyeshadow palette related questions in it, and you guys know how much I love eyeshadow and I also love doing tag videos. So this is exactly the kind of tag that I wanted to film today. So anyway, there's so many questions in here. Well, not a ton, but there are a few really interesting ones, and I am going to answer each and every single one of them for you guys. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first question is asking for the first palette you purchased. My first palette that I purchased, I actually didn't purchase this with my own money, but I asked for it and I got it, luckily enough for me. This was a Lorac Pro 2 palette right here. And I still use this palette. I actually use this color right here for my eyebrows along with this color. And then I actually use this color in like my under eye area. Strangely enough, this palette is like my everyday makeup palette. I know, it's like a palette that you wouldn't expect me to use on an everyday basis, but if you saw my like Jaclyn Hill video, the most recent one that I did, the one that's called Why It's Impossible to Cancel Jaclyn Hill, you saw that winged liner look with the smoked out under eye that I had in that video, and that is like pretty much my daily makeup look that I do all the time, and I use this palette to create that look. And I recently just broke out this palette because I just wanted to use it because it's been such a long time since I actually was using this palette on a regular basis. And what I like to do nowadays is I just like to use these two colors for a brow bone highlight occasionally. I use this color for my eyebrows and I've already hit pan on it, and then I just use these two colors as well. But everything else, like all the other colors in this palette, remain largely unused. And I feel like as soon as I hit pan or as soon as I use up these two colors, this color, and these colors, that's when I'll actually get rid of this palette because I don't really like any of the other colors, but those colors I do find myself using. But yeah, this was my first palette and such an old palette, I feel like. This was the Lorac Pro 2. Did I already say that? I have no idea. But yeah, so many memories associated with this one. I remember getting it and I was so absolutely like just so happy because I remember just really trying to find like my first eyeshadow palette, and I feel like this was the first like legitimate eyeshadow palette that I just found myself and that I really wanted, because before this, like the eyeshadow palettes that I was using were eyeshadow palettes that were bought for me but were used specifically for like stage makeup for my dance recitals. But this was like the first palette that I actually like saw and I was like, I want this, you know. So like I have so many like nice memories attached to this, but this is not necessarily a palette that inspires me today, but I still do find ways to use it. The next question is the most recent palette you purchased. I actually did have to do a little bit of digging to find this one because I mean, I don't necessarily keep track of like which palettes I purchased chronologically. But that is the Color Drain Vivid Pigments and Shadows palette. This is the most recent palette that I have purchased, I believe. I might be wrong. Hopefully I'm not, but I do believe that this is definitely the most recent one that I have purchased. This is such a beautiful palette. You guys know that I use it all the time. This constantly inspires me. I love it so much. I think it's amazing, and the formula in here is so good. The colors are so good. I use it in countless looks, countless tutorials, and I absolutely love and enjoy this palette to pieces. It's so good, and I would say that this is like my one of my top 3 eyeshadow palettes. It is that amazing, and I absolutely love this. It is so good. But then the next question is one you regret missing out on. I actually do regret missing out on the Linda Hallberg Spectral palette. I mean, I feel like that palette came out when I was like already in the midst of my no buy. Either I was on my low buy or either I was on my no buy. I mean, that palette is still available, but I just can't get it right now because of my no buy, but I still really do like it. I mean, it's so beautiful. The colors in there are so lovely, and everyone who gets it seems to really enjoy it, and I really do love the pastel trend that palette embodies. So if there's any palette that I regret not getting or that I really would like to get, it's that palette specifically. Okay, so the next palette that I'm going to show you is the one that makes me happy to look at, and that would be the Blush Tribe Hasina 2. Now, this was the eyeshadow palette that I saw like right when I was like getting into my colorful makeup craze, and I instantly just like I started making excuses as to why I shouldn't buy it because I was trying to persuade myself that no, I did not need this palette. But those excuses were quickly evaporating, and essentially I decided that I really actually did want this palette, and it ended up being like quite an ordeal for me to actually get my hands on this because first it was getting sold out, and then when it would be in stock, I would be like, okay, no, that's like money that I don't necessarily need to spend on makeup, you know, like it's something that has to be shipped from overseas, and I just kept making excuse after excuse, and then when I would want it, it would be sold out, and then I finally saw like this promo code like 30% off, and I was like, you know what, might as well get it now. 30% off, it's not like it's 10% off. 30% off is, in my opinion, a pretty hefty discount for makeup at least, so I decided to go ahead and buy it, and when it arrived, I mean, I did a swatch party on it, and I did so many videos with it, and for a while, I would do, like, any makeup tutorial, and each and every single makeup tutorial that I would do would feature at least one of these colors, and eventually I just grew to absolutely fall in love with this palette, and whenever I look at it, sorry, the lighting just got really dark there, but whenever I look at this palette, I open it, and I still have the sleeve, because it's just that special. I open it and I instantly feel so happy because I know that this is just like an object, and it's not necessarily wise for me to attach like such strong emotions to something, but I look at this palette and I instantly feel like I literally attach this palette to my journey in colorful makeup, because I feel like this is one of the palettes of a small micro influencer colorful makeup lover YouTube, you know? That makes no sense. But like I feel like almost every single person who loves colorful makeup who is a micro influencer on this platform loves this palette, or at least has been drawn to this palette in some way, shape, or form. And I look at this palette and I think of all the amazing influencers that I discovered when I was looking for reviews and tutorials with this palette, and those influencers are still influencers that I love today, that I found because I was looking up this palette. Does that make any sense? And I look at this palette and I think of like this journey that I've come on, this like journey of self-discovery, this journey of artistry, this journey of my YouTube channel, and I sort of like attach those like nice memories to this palette, and in that way I'm able to really just like always feel happy whenever I look at this palette, because like this palette epitomizes for me so many different things, and I just love it. The next palette is one I've changed my mind about. And I had several palettes in my head for this, but the one that I want to mention for this category would be the ColourPop Mar palette. I got this palette, and I truly believe that if there's a palette that I kind of maybe regret, it would be this palette. But the thing is, I don't necessarily regret it as much as I feel that I definitely would not purchase it if I was looking at it today, because this is a palette that is 9 shades, right? And it markets itself as a cool tone palette, but 3 of those 9 shades are cool tones, the rest are warm slash neutral tones. And in that way, I feel like this palette did mislead me, because these 3 shades are like the only shades in this palette that I use with any regularity. Everything else in this palette I just don't use that much. So yeah, those 3 shades are great shades, but essentially I bought this palette because I was looking for those 3 shades, and when I first got this palette, I was like, this is so great, this is an amazing palette, and I did do a review on that palette, or I think at least I shared my opinions, and regardless of how I feel now, I still stand by those opinions that I did share, because anything that I did say was said in that moment, and I really do think that when I first got this palette, I really did enjoy it, but now I look at this palette and I literally feel like this is a palette that I don't necessarily like as much as I did when I first got it because of the absence of colorful shades in here. You have 3 cool tone colorful shades and that's it. So I feel like this is a palette that it's a nice, okay palette, but I feel like whatever ColourPop is coming out with now is, in my mind, filled with better color stories than this palette did have. So I am happy that they came out with their green palette and with their blue palette, and I feel like those are better alternatives than this palette, but like, yeah, this is one that I definitely don't like as much as I did when I first got it. Definitely did change my mind about it. I just don't like it as much. The next palette is one that surprised me, and that would be the Festival palette by Juvia's Place. I got this palette because it was on sale, and I had heard a lot of great opinions and a lot of great feedback on this particular shade right here, and at the time I was looking for like a beautiful red color, and I saw Angelica Nyqvist really talk a lot about that specific red shade, and she really loved it. And I was like, you know what, I'm looking for a red color, and this one is a color that everyone seems to really like. Let's just go and get this. This palette is on sale, might as well try this out. So I got this palette and I bought it. And even when I first got it, I don't think I was like that obsessed with it. I mean, I did end up really using this shade and really liking it. But as I've used this palette more and as I've like gotten to know it better and as I've had it more in my collection, I find myself literally just having like this growing love and adoration for this palette, because I mean, I use these 2 shades as highlight colors. I use all the rest of the shades on my eyes. I love these shades so much. These 3 colors are absolutely beautiful mattes. I love them to pieces. I'm wearing them all on my eyes today, and I'm wearing this color in my inner corner. I mean, I just like this palette so much. I love it so much, and I definitely think that this palette surprised me, because looking at this color story, I don't know why, but I just felt like when I first saw this color story, I wasn't that into it. But now, like, the more I have like used this palette, I have just found myself falling in love over and over with this palette, and this palette really does inspire me a lot, and I really was surprised by how much I like this palette, and I really do think that this is definitely one of the best shades or one of the best palettes in my collection. So the next palette is one that inspires me the most, and that palette would be this one, the Juvia's Place Magic palette. I think that there are so many beautiful looks that I've done with this palette, beautiful in my opinion, but this is just such a beautiful palette. You have metallics in here, you have mattes, and all of these shades are so incredibly beautiful on the eyes, and I just like this palette so much, and it constantly inspires me because like there is just so much to choose from with this palette. There's so many different color combinations that you can do. And I feel that this is a really like just fun palette to work with and mix in with other palettes. There are definitely looks that I've started with this palette, and I have felt in so many cases that I was really uninspired, that I really did not know quite what to do, and I have picked up this palette, I've worked with it, and then I have just come out with a look that I really did love and enjoy. So this is a palette that constantly inspires me. I just love going into it, and I can create a lot of really interesting looks with it, and it's definitely one that I reach for on a regular basis. The next one is one on my wish list. Now, I actually do have several palettes on my wish list, but I wanted to tell you guys about several palettes that come from the same brand that I view as quite unobtainable. And those palettes are literally any Pat McGrath palette that has ever been created. I love her more colorful palettes, of course, but I just feel that so many people that buy her eyeshadows specifically just really consistently say wonderful things about the formula, wonderful things about the colors, and I feel like the price of Pat McGrath eyeshadows are like make them so unobtainable that they're consistently always on my wish list, even though I don't necessarily feel that they're really good good purchases for me to make, you know? But I feel like those palettes are definitely on my wish list because of how beautiful they are, how like just stunning the shades seem to perform, and just the color stories in general. And I love Pat McGrath, so those palettes that she launches, like nearly every single palette that she launches is most definitely on my wish list. The next palette is my No Fail palette, and that accolade would go to the Color Drain Vivid Pigments and Shadows palette. This is the palette that whenever I'm in a slump, whenever I don't know quite what to do, and whenever I want a palette that's easy to work with, has easy formulas, and has colors that I know, trust, and love, I go for this palette because I just like it so much. I actually really do like combining it with like a few Juvia's Place palettes as well, because these colors are so vibrant, and a lot of my Juvia's Place shadows are quite like dark and metallic, and I like combining the two. But this is definitely my no fail palette because whenever I pick this up, I always find it a lot more difficult to screw up a look. Most of the time whenever I do makeup looks, I just find myself really confused, and a lot of times I doubt that the finished look will turn out okay. But whenever I use this palette, I have dramatically less of those doubts, if that makes any sense. But yeah, this is such a beautiful palette. I always love it, and I use it, and I definitely find it very difficult to fail with this palette. So that is pretty much the end of this video. That is the another palette tag. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it interesting. I mean, I love talking about eyeshadow palettes, and whenever I saw this upload from Eyes of Alexandria, I just was really just motivated to film it. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed it and found it interesting. I'll put Alexandria's video down below as well as Kaylee's video. Please go check them out. By all means, do this tag. I'm curious to see what you guys come up with, and if you don't have a YouTube channel, comment down below and tell me what your like favorite eyeshadow palettes would be, or if there are any like eyeshadow palettes that you think would apply to one of the points in this tag. So let me know your opinions down below and I'll get back to you. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.